Welcome to the MYS Virtual Hangout. Here's your host, MYS Music Director, Raul Gomez.
Good afternoon, Portland and Metropolitan Youth Symphony students and families and everybody else. Were you listening to that music before we started? Astor Piazzolla, I could listen to his music forever. And I almost wanted to let that last track play until the end, but it had like 5 more minutes, so that's too long. But the last one was Adios Nonino by Astor Piazzolla himself and his ensemble, live in Teatro Colón in 1983. And the reason why we're playing a little Piazzolla before the beginning of the show is that we're going to listen to a little Piazzolla in the middle of the show when our guest, Kevin Lefohn, will share a video of his trio performing Oblivion by Astor Piazzolla. And yes, Kevin Lefohn is standing by. He is an MYS conductor. He conducts our Hillsborough chamber strings. He's also an amazing violinist and a fantastic teacher. And I have great admiration for Kevin and everything that he's doing. So before we go on, I want to thank, as always, the creators of my video intro, Felipe and Jose Julian Araya for their video work, Sam Mori for the voiceover, and Griffin Barbieri, an MYS alum, for the music. Okay, and I have just a few quick updates before we call Kevin into the show. So the first one is that yesterday was the first ever MYS meme tournament. So we had MYS students send memes, music-related memes that they found. We had 2 categories. One was found memes, so memes that you find on the internet, then you could submit one of those. And we had an original content category. So I just want to congratulate the winners in both categories. I'll put them up on the screen for you guys to see it. In the found meme category, Aaron Johnson sent a meme of Haydn at the piano. We imagine composing his surprise symphony, and his cat is hanging out on the piano and just sort of hanging out, and then suddenly Haydn plays the fortissimo chord at the end of the phrase and the cat jumps up in the air. So that was the winner of the found category, and we did this with brackets. We had just head-to-head, meme against meme, round of 8, round of 4, and then a final round for each category. And to your right, the winner of the original content meme was Symphony Orchestra bassist William Graham, who created this 4-panel meme that features me. And he must have spent quite a bit of time just looking for the right facial expressions, but there you have it. Using the click track to record your part, then record. And he's referring to the MYS virtual performances, where MYS students have to record their parts at home to a click track, and then we put all the parts together. All MYS ensembles will get to make one of those. In any case, that's what this is referring to. Record your part by listening to random jazz songs and guessing what the notes are. Record your part by beatboxing the click track. And the final panel, record your part while watching Dr. Gomez replay the finished video on the next live stream. So there you have it. And the winners of each category received the amazing prize of a Great Job B sticker, and plus the fame and fortune that comes from winning such a competition. So that was the MYS meme tournament. My second update is that registration is now open for next season for MYS. So all current MYS students and also all new students, all young musicians who would like to join the Metropolitan Youth Symphony are able now to register for next season. And all you have to do is go to the MYS website, just playmys.org, and you'll find everything you need there. There's a registration form for new and returning students, and once you fill out the registration form, you will be given instructions for your audition, and all auditions this year or this summer will be video auditions. So we will not have in-person MYS auditions as we normally do, but all of the auditions for new and returning students will be by video submission. And of course, a big reason why we're doing this is because of the current restrictions, because of the pandemic, right? So once you finish your registration online, you will receive instructions to submit your video audition for all MYS ensembles, all of our orchestra, our full orchestras, our string orchestras, our bands, our jazz groups in Portland and Hillsborough go through the same process. So go to our website, or if you know a young musician in Portland or the surrounding area who would benefit from being in MYS, and which young musician wouldn't benefit, then send them over to the MYS website and you can register starting now. And your videos you can send starting on June 1st. All the information is on the website, so go check it out. And one final update before we bring Mr. Lefohn into the show. One of our MYS conductors, Adam Lamont, who's the conductor of our Baroque orchestra, Baroque strings. He, like Kevin Lefohn, to whom we're going to be talking to very soon, he's a great violinist and a great conductor and a great teacher. And Adam Lamont also has a chamber orchestra, a professional chamber orchestra here in town, the Amadeus Chamber Orchestra. And they, in the midst of our social isolation currently, Adam has been doing a concert series every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Through Amadeus Chamber Orchestra, and they're calling this concert series Hum Day Concerts. And I wanted to share with all of you the beginning of last night's Hump Day concert because it's so just incredibly awesome and amazing and funny. So let me put that up on the screen right now. So there you have it, and I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. So you see it there, Hum Day House Concerts, a new live stream series featuring Adam and Janet from our music room, each Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. So last night they had well, maybe I will not reveal the surprise. So I just want to play the first little bit of last night's Amadeus Chamber Orchestra Hum Day concert. You can find out more at amadeuspdx.org. But for now, enjoy this.
Excuse me, that's not how it's supposed to go. My grandpa learned it to me real good a long time ago. I said it goes something a little bit like this.
Of course, that's Greg Ewer from the Oregon Symphony and also a member of Amadeus Chamber Orchestra. And then they go on to play an amazing program of duos and music for two violins. I'm just clicking around a little bit. So anyways, I thought that was really cool and really funny, and it brought me joy. So I thought I would share that with you. So check out their series, Hum Day Concerts, every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Go to amadeuspdx.org. And thank you, Adam, for letting us share that. Okay, so without further ado, let's get Mr. Lefohn on the line, excuse me, on Skype. So here we go. There you are.
Hey!
Hey, let me put you up on the screen. Okay, that was quick. I didn't even hear the Skype ringtone.
I know, I was reading your mind.
Awesome, awesome. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm very excited. I'm very thankful that you are spending this time with us. I know you're very busy. You're doing a lot of teaching and all kinds of exciting things. So thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this. You're just as busy as the rest of us, corralling all of us to join the conversation.
Well, I've been having such a great time with these hangouts, because everyone I've talked to, I mean, they're most of them are friends that I know personally, right? And some of them are people maybe from out of town that I haven't spent that much time with. But with all of them, I've had really inspiring and exciting and fun conversations. So I have been looking forward to this one.
Well, thank you. And that's one of I mean, this time we're in is crazy and unrecognizable, but one of the greatest benefits that I think we're all seeing is that we can connect with people. And I've been talking to friends I haven't talked to in years, and it's because we have time. We're here hanging out. And there are people like yourself that are doing this kind of big virtual world hug and bringing us together. So thank you.
Well, thank you for being part of it. But look, before anything else, I went to your website, right, in preparation, which I have seen before, but I went there earlier today in preparation for a conversation. And I know you, of course, as an MYS conductor and as a violinist, a chamber musician, a teacher, and I know you have a background also in arts administration. You've done so many things, so many cool things all over the world. Your website, your tagline is violinist, teacher, consultant. So I wanted to ask you just straight up to sort of like give us an overview of everything that you do, and whether it fits into those three categories or maybe there's more to it. So especially for people who are not as familiar as many of us are with your work.
Thank you. And, I came to a point in my career and I realized that, you take stock in what you have and what directions you're going to move. And I realized that the choices I wanted to make in directions I wanted to move needed to give me energy. And anything I did, I chose to do it or not. Is it giving me energy or not? Because I'm the kind of person, I know myself well enough now that I like to be busy, and I don't know what to do with myself if I'm not busy. And if I'm really busy doing things that are taking my energy, then I'm not happy, and those around me are probably not going to be happy either. So I realized that at the core of everything, playing my instrument selfishly for myself and with others, and whether that be collaborators or for an audience, is so important to me. So that's at the core of what I do. Teaching, I get tremendous energy from. It takes a lot of energy, as we all know, and I include conducting in that, but I get tremendous give back from that, more than I give. Otherwise, I couldn't sustain it. In the consulting, I have, throughout your career, you go in new directions and you try different things, and for a period of, full-time work, a period of 6 years, I was in orchestra management. And 3 of those years were when I first got to Portland as executive director of PYP, Portland Youth Philharmonic. And I realized when I made this decision that I needed to go in directions that gave me energy, that if I could use those skills and that experience that I had from that period of my time. Now, prior to then, in administration, I had created a string project for young students and teaching college students to teach in New Zealand. I created an intensive summer school. And so I had these kind of building things from the ground up and learning from your own mistakes and, celebrating the successes from when you lick your wounds, all of that. And I then went into arts administration, and I realized that I wanted to share that experience and grow from it and learn from it at the same time. And that amount of contribution to the world has ebbed and flowed. And right now it's me being a volunteer board member for organizations and being a quiet volunteer consultant for other organizations. So for instance, I'm on the board of Community Music Center, have been for about 6 years. And I've been an advisor to Bravo Youth Orchestras and to Fear No Music in their early time when Kenji and Monica came on board. So organizations that I love what they do and I love the people that are involved in it. That's my consultancy bucket at the moment.
Cool, and we certainly benefit from that at MYS as well. We're very thankful for that. But can we go way, way, way back? Because I want to ask you about your high school or earlier years, your beginnings in music, and then your journey and your education, and whether when you were in high school you imagined that you would be doing all these things you're doing right now and the way you're doing them.
I hope my high school music orchestra teacher maybe is listening or not listening, I'm not sure, but 2 words: class clown. I was so disruptive.
Oh no.
And I've apologized to her. Part of that was
you have really?
I have.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And she's followed my career, and I owe her a lot, of course. This is Mrs. Sager. I owe her a lot, and I think what I owe her a lot is to my marriage. Actually, I'm not married to her. My wife we were high school sweethearts. Was a violist in high school orchestra. And so a lot of that class clowning was probably ridiculous flirting or something, I don't know. But if I can take you back, I grew up in Montana, in I don't know what part of Montana isn't rural, but in relatively rural Montana, outside of Helena. And I was a part of a Suzuki group, a Suzuki violin student group, that we didn't have the distractions of technology today, or should I say distractions or inspirations of technology today. And we had time to be musicians and to be friends and to be friend musicians. And we were really good. And we challenged each other in really healthy ways. And we were not kind of on the conservatory path of those 4 that were together. I was the only one that went down that road. The others are all still playing. So we were good and we were bored in music, in school music. And that's where the disruptiveness came from. But having said that, we focused and we played well, and I hope that, we inspired each other and we challenged each other. But at least we had school music.
Yeah. Which, unfortunately, as you know, is not always the case these days. Different school districts have different challenges, but growing up I didn't have it, but I had youth orchestra. But in your case, clearly your school music experience had a great impact in your development.
It did, because it was a fun and safe place in a cowboy state where classical music and being a violinist was really abnormal. And I felt super cool in that space and super uncool in the 95% of the space around that coolness, in the rest of school. And so it was we got to be who we wanted to be in that space without even knowing that that's what it was providing.
And when you were in high school, did you know that you wanted to have a career in music? How early did you know that?
I go back to this a lot. When I was in high school, okay, let's go way back, and I'm dating myself, but there was no email, there was no internet, right? So how did a professor communicate? How did a professor, and I want to come back to this towards the end of our time today, but how did a professor identify talent for a potential recruit for their college? And it was really antiquated back then. So I played in Montana's version of Solo and Ensemble Festival, and I would get my score of a 1, and then the college professors around the region, so the region would be, let's call it the Northwest and all the way down to Colorado, which is not Northwest, but Mountain Time, and those professors would scour through the results of those competitions, and then we'd get letters in the mail. And it was really fascinating. So I grew up in this small town, and I knew that there was a whole world out there that was working differently, and there were much better students and players out there than me, and I had this inferiority complex, and I chose after having received all these letters of recruitment and ignoring all of them, because I knew I hadn't challenged myself enough out of my bubble. And I guess this is kind of a theme of my kind of teaching philosophy is we need to isolate ourselves in our own bubble so we can focus and do our work as best we can, but we need to expand our bubble as big as we can so that we know where we stand in the world and be influenced and challenged by the world. And I hadn't expanded my bubble enough beyond, all Northwest orchestra festivals and things, and summer schools and Suzuki Institutes and things like that until I got to college. But by then I decided I'm not going to go into music. And I went 2 years to Montana State, not in music education, until I got a phone call from the violin professor there saying, I just heard a rumor that you're here on campus, and I've been trying to reach you for the last year. And tomorrow, 8 a.m., you're coming to my studio to play an audition for the orchestra at the university. I was like, oh, I've been outed.
Wow, okay.
And that started my kind of serious out of high school music playing, and not only, and I met him at 8 a.m., and not only did I play in the orchestra, but I started taking lessons from him, and I did that for a couple of years before I transferred universities, and then it was a long kind of progression of getting more and more and more and more serious along the way.
And so, if you don't mind me asking, during those first 2 years that you were at Montana State, did you have a declared major, or did you have a path in mind outside of music, or?
This was my path.
Yeah, okay. You were looking for one.
And I was trying, and it drove some of my family members nuts, like my grandma, who expected this kind of straight path of education. But my parents were very supportive to allow me to find my path, and where both my feet were on the ground and I was headed in that direction. And they patiently waited for me and helped me afford to go on that circuitous route to find that. And so my path was 2 years at Montana State doing general education, they would call it, until your end of your second year. You had to focus and decide what your major would be. But I was able to delay it another year by going on exchange to Humboldt State University, and did all music as a kind of, let's just try this year, and realized that, I came home at Thanksgiving and I had all A pluses. And I remember saying to my parents, I think I found what I need to do here. Not sure what I'm going to do, but obviously, the signs are there. The end of that year, it was a 1-year exchange. I needed to go somewhere else and focus, and that's when I transferred to U of O. And that's when I, started getting really serious. And, there were other connections. You can lead me to how far you want me to go down that path, but there were other connections that once I was in that environment of serious music students, headed towards careers, that I felt very, very fortunate to meet this person and get introduced to this person. That's the way this industry works.
And was that your first time in Oregon, basically, when you went to U of O?
I had lived in Oregon for about 3 years when my dad had a job in Corvallis.
Oh, okay.
So we had lived there in Corvallis before moving to Montana. So all of my growing up from age 5 was in Montana, but there was a stint in Oregon. So there was some familiarity.
You had some kind of relationship with Oregon, sort of. And then I guess my question, well, first of all, an observation, and that is that, several guests that we have had in this show have had a similar experience, that when you're in college, certainly in high school and then early years of college, it's okay to not have all the answers.
Yep.
Right? And eventually, you'll if you stay true to your core, and if you continue to challenge yourself, and even if you don't really know exactly what you're going to be doing in 5 or 10 years, you will continue to grow, right? And eventually you'll find a path, or that path might find you.
It does find you, and we have some influence on that, and about who influences us in life, but you make your own luck. You make some decisions. In hindsight, you realize that was a good decision, or I had good advice to make that decision.
Yeah.
Do you remember, earlier this year, I may have shared this story with you, you had this wonderful connection with the group out of Austin, A Far Cry. And my MYS ensemble, the Hillsborough Chamber Strings, had the great honor of working with them. And so my group, for those that don't know, the group is 11 to 15-year-olds. There's about 20 of them just string players. And we worked and worked and worked and worked and worked and worked until the one day that this quartet of professional players from a far cry came and read with us. And I knew we would be ready. And the kids had, I call them musicians, not kids, sorry. The musicians their young musicians had no idea what to expect, but it was extraordinary and it worked really, really well. And we saved time for a little Q&A session. And I asked them, all four of them, to answer the question of what they were doing at these kids' age in their life. And if at that age they had any hope or aspiration or inkling to be a professional musician. And the one answer that surprised me and all of the other musicians was none of them thought they would be a professional musician at that age. And that was incredibly inspiring for those musicians to hear that.
Yeah, and I think again, it has become a recurrent theme that there's so much pressure on young people to have all the answers, and some do. I mean, I know people who when they were 6 years old, they knew exactly what they were gonna do, and they did it, and they're doing great. But I know just as many people who just didn't know, myself included. I didn't know that I was gonna be a professional musician until at the beginning of my college years. And it's okay. It's okay to not know. But like you're saying, it's important to ask questions, to create relationships, to have mentors, and to look for their advice. Because we're not. I mean, I like what you were saying about the bubbles, right? That we have our bubble, and it's important to work within that bubble and do your individual work, but then go outside of that bubble. And one of the things that you could go outside of that bubble for is advice and ideas. Now, my question is, did you go after UFO? Did you go to Cincinnati? Was that like a straight transition, or was there time in between?
There was a bridge, but I did go to Cincinnati right after that. So I finished my undergrad after 6 years in 3 universities. I finished my undergrad at U of O, but the beauty of that is all this time that I described, which was looking like this, was time that I took care of the credits that exist beyond the music degree. So the last 3 years of my undergrad really felt like graduate school, where I had taken care of all the math-related courses and the things that didn't pertain directly to music. So it was a very, very focused time. During that time, I saw an advertisement at U of O that the Emerson String Quartet was coming to perform in Bell Hall on campus and was giving a master class. And this was a year out. And I remember getting together with 2 friends and saying, let's play for that master class. And so we got an ensemble together. We played the Dvorak Terzetto, 2 violins and viola. And we played in that master class a year later. And that was the pivotal moment for me, for my career. And I went to their concert the next night, and my teacher called me after the master class, and she said, I just spent time talking to the guys in the quartet, and this was Catherine Lechtenberg, was my teacher at U of O, and she said, we spent quite a long time talking about you. I said, me? And she said, yeah, you need to spend some more time talking to them. They want to see if they can help you. What? Little old me. And I went to their concert, and I got into the reception, crashed the reception afterwards, and spent the entire night talking to Phil Setzer, who is one of the violinists in the quartet. The neat thing about that quartet is they alternate first and second violins, so it's a very collegial thing. And at that point, he looked at me, and he looked right in my eyes, and he said, you have what it takes. You have a tremendous amount of work to do. If you get in the right hands, in the right time, you'll be fine. Oh. I have no more choice now in this matter. My path has been chosen. And it felt like, somebody had picked me up, shaken me, and said, go. Okay, I better do what he said. And so he recommended that I go to Aspen Music Festival, which I had always heard of and knew about. And he gave me a list of 3 people to study with. And I got in, I got a scholarship. I asked for more money. That was the game back then, and I got a bigger scholarship. Asked again, and I got a bigger scholarship, and then I could go. I could afford to go. And at that point, it was a 10-week festival, and I studied with Kurt Sossman's, who was they call him an assistant of Dorothy DeLay, the master teacher at Juilliard for 4 decades. And that gave me an open door then to that whole world of from Montana to Juilliard, but I didn't really want to go to Juilliard, and I didn't want to go to New York. And so that opened the door that year of study to when I auditioned for Cincinnati, at University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music, to study with Sossman's. We'd already had a working relationship. He trusted me, knew that I would work, and of course I enjoyed working with him. That opened the door to studying with Dorothy DeLay, which was, that was a terrific time, and I was one of the last group of students that worked with her in the last 5-6 years of her life.
Very cool. And that takes us to your, mid-20s, late 20s, somewhere around that neighborhood?
Mid. Yeah.
Okay, so before we keep talking, because I just keep asking questions and I get excited, we should do a little game that we play on this show, Two Truths and a Lie, so that people watching will be able to vote for one. So this is how it works, everybody. If you have not done this before, Mr. Lefohn shared 3 statements with us. We're going to put those up on the screen. 2 of them are true statements, and 1 of them is a lie. And your job will be to vote on the comments for which of these statements you believe is a lie. And let me ask you, do you have those in front of you, Kevin, that you could read them for us?
I do.
Okay, awesome. So let's go ahead and let's reveal the first statement.
The first statement: I had lunch with Prince Edward, Earl of Wessex,
Okay.
Queen Elizabeth's youngest son.
That is up on the screen, so that's statement A. Statement B, please.
I have never made a haircut appointment for myself with a dog groomer.
Okay. We're actually going to call that one statement C, just because it's up on the screen as statement C. And then the final statement.
I have performed solo for an audience of over 100,000 people.
Okay, now they're all on the screen now. Statement A, Kevin had lunch with Prince Edward. Statement B, I have performed solo for an audience of over 100,000 people. Statement C, I have never made a haircut appointment for myself with a dog groomer. I think they're all great. I really want all 3 of them to be true. But only 2 of them are. So if you're watching, go ahead and vote right now. Which of these... and I have not made up my mind, by the way. But we'll let people vote. And we'll keep talking while people enter their votes. So you went to Cincinnati and you had spent time in Oregon before, and then you came to Portland. Now, did you come to Portland for the PYP job, or was it not exactly that the reason why you ended up here?
I actually ended up somewhere else before I got to Portland. So I've been in Portland since 2010, and that's when I started PYP. But I graduated with my master's degree in Cincinnati in 1997. So there was a gap there. And that's always an interesting and scary time is, okay, you've committed yourself to having a career, and the question is, well, can I get one? So I knew that Oregon was comfortable for me and a place where I could, at that point I'd had 8 years of college, and I was being begged by Sossman's to stay and do a doctoral of musical arts and have a DMA, but I was burned out and I just needed to get out of academia for a while and maybe go back later. I haven't made it there yet. Well, I guess I have, but as a teacher, but not as a student of life. And I auditioned for the Eugene Symphony, flew out from Cincinnati, won that position, moved to Eugene with my fiance, high school girlfriend. She'd been with me on and off, but at that point on, of course. And then she went to school when we got to Eugene. She was at Lane Community College. Stayed for a year, thinking, maybe I should have stayed and done the DMA, missing the bubble of conservatory world, which is sterile and pure and energizing and creative and hard, but not the real world. and the real world is full of real world and challenge and messiness. And so there was that magnetism of being pulled back to that. But I thought also that Salzman's House had shared with all of his students, he always did, he said, look, he said, you career-wise, if you want to end up in academia, teaching at university, you have two routes. One, you do the DMA or PhD. DMA is
So Kevin, I don't know if you can hear.
usually more.
Oh, there you are.
Oh.
Okay, so
Okay.
we get kind of disconnected for
Sorry.
a moment. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Yeah, so you were saying two routes if you want to teach in a university, the DMA or PhD, and that's where we lost you.
So that's one route, is getting a doctorate, and the other route is having commensurate experience, so that you know, in a university position, many universities, state-funded universities, will say must have a DMA or a PhD, a terminal degree. But there are others that say or equivalent career experience, professional experience. So I thought, and he said, if you can get a university job without the DMA or the PhD, he said, then you've got that. So I thought, well, let's just test that route. And long story short, applied for and got a job. It was a long period. These things take forever, over about 6 to 9 months for a job in New Zealand. And moved to New Zealand and started a tenure track position in 1998, 1 year out of my master's. And I stayed in that job for 9 years, got tenure, stayed in that job for 9 years, during which time I started performance-based programs, started a string project at the university, started a intensive summer school for advanced students, a nonprofit to support all of that. And that's where I got my hands dirty in arts administration. Needed a change, decided to leave academia, go into arts administration full-time, and became the artistic administrator for Christchurch, New Zealand Symphony Orchestra. And that led to a period of time of being acting and then interim CEO, as there was a CEO change. In the US, we call it executive director. In New Zealand, it was the chief executive officer. So at that point, got a lot of experience with the political and the financial and the board management and everything that goes on with that. That orchestra size is about $2 million a year, so it's a kind of mid-sized orchestra. And it got, interestingly, it got 2/3 of that funding from the government of New Zealand. So totally different funding structure there. It was just a really interesting contrast to what we have here. And it was from that job that I landed in Portland as executive director of PYP.
Cool, and that was in 2010, you said?
2010.
Yeah, okay. Now, I want to go back to this, but as one of the things that you do currently, you're an active chamber musician, and you have a trio that I have had the pleasure to work with, also last year or the year before with the Beethoven Triple Concerto. So will you share with folks about your trio, and then perhaps after that we can hear the video that you sent us?
Cool. One of the things that I learned, our trio does some really unique work, and I'll preface this by saying the trio right now is a duo, as we're in personnel search for pianist transition. I was talking about going back to school, and Kira Whiting was our pianist, and she's happily now back at school becoming a nurse and keeping up her piano playing, and we miss her dearly. So one of the things that one of my teachers helped me with really was super helpful in my own work as a musician, but it has very much transferred into my teaching from my playing, is finding centeredness and groundedness and focus and calmness and mindfulness and peace. And that is something that she infused in me, is find that peace in yourself so that you can be who you need to be in that moment for the others you're doing it with or for. And that's always been a personal journey for me. And when I met David Eby, the cellist in that group, that is his life, and he's very much devoted to, and for many, many years has been devoted to, mindfulness and meditation. And I dabbled in meditation at times in classes, but always integrated some quiet reflection and mindfulness time into my own practice to help just ground myself, clear my thoughts, do the work I need to do ahead of me. Well, the trio has always been that at our core and dedicated ourselves to that. And we experimented with and continue to finding time to be silent and quiet and breathe together before we do our work together. And it's the most extraordinary thing when you think about it, when you bring 3 people together, whether it's 2 or 3 or 10 or 100, like your orchestra, when you bring people together, the amount of the outside world that comes into that space, but blindly, we don't see it because it's in our heads. The amount of people we've connected with that day, the things we're worried about, the things that we're excited about, all of that comes into our head, and it disconnects us from each other. So if we can find time and space to calm our thoughts so we can be right there, in our case, the 3 of us, it becomes incredibly powerful how quickly you can get to playing music as one. That's been the devotion of this ensemble. And we were together, this would have been 4 years. And we worked with you now a couple of years ago?
Something like that. Time sort of like, blurs together, especially in this very unique situation we're in.
Yeah.
Everything is like pre or post isolation. But yeah, I loved working with you guys, and one of my favorite things that we did was when you guys led the orchestra in rehearsal into a moment of meditation and mindfulness, which totally changed that rehearsal. And it was very obvious that it's like those channels of communication were cleaner or something. It's weird to describe it, but I really sensed personally that sort of shift. So I really enjoyed it. And the video that you're going to share with us, of course, it's Astor Piazzolla's Oblivion, and this is from a live performance. And when was this, and where, if you remember?
This was in the old church, and it was probably 3 years ago. I think the YouTube upload date is probably there. I can't remember for sure.
Cool. Okay, so we're going to listen to and watch this video right now. This is Piazzolla's Oblivion, performed by the Bodhi Trio. And Kevin, I always forget to do this, so I'm going to remind myself and invite you. We'll both mute our mics just in case. And here it is, everybody. Enjoy. Very, very nice. Everybody put your emoji hands together for the Bodhi Trio performing Astor Piazzolla's Oblivion. Let's see those applause emojis in the comments. Now, Kevin, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Let me. Okay. So that was wonderful. And what a beautiful piece.
It's a gorgeous piece. Yeah.
Yes. Cool. So before we keep talking for a little bit longer, let's go ahead and reveal the answers here regarding your two truths and a lie. And if you're watching and you have not voted, now is the time to do it. So those three facts are still on the screen, or those three statements, because one of them is not a fact, it's a lie. So statement A is Kevin had lunch with Prince Edward. Statement B is Kevin has performed solo for an audience of over 100,000 people. Statement C, Kevin has never made a haircut appointment with himself with a dog groomer. Okay, so go ahead and vote if you have not voted yet. And I do see a pretty clear trend in the votes that we have so far. So how about we reveal the first truth, or one of your truths?
One truth is that I have indeed had lunch with Prince Edward.
Okay, so and actually the trend was that people thought that was your lie. So how did this happen?
In New Zealand, I was acting CEO of Christchurch Symphony Orchestra, and Prince Edward was in the country doing the thing that royals do in Commonwealth countries, and I was invited with a very small select group of people to go to this exquisite estate and have this lunch with Prince Edward, and his entourage brought him in, and we were given a very clear statement of what to do and what not to do in his presence, including do not shake his hand unless he extends his hand first.
Wow, and so that you get to chat with him and...
He was very chatty, and in fact he did reach out and shake all of our hands, and it was a very normal, formal business lunch with us all there. We got pictures and everything. In fact, I was trying to get some pictures together, but we were told not to take pictures. You know, they were very cautious. Obviously, they'd had their orders, but it was very friendly, and they did send us back then a CD or DVD, I guess it was, of photos, and they're deep in a drawer, and I don't even have a player to play it.
Whoa, that's very Cool.
It was cool.
So, if you're still, I mean, if you voted A, you have a chance to change your vote now. So we're down to two options because so many people voted A that I think, you get a second chance, ladies and gentlemen. So we're down to two options. Statement B, Kevin has performed solo for over 100,000 people. Statement C, he has never made a haircut appointment with himself for a dog groomer. And okay, let's go ahead and reveal the final truth, which will also reveal the lie.
I have indeed performed for an audience solo with orchestra of over 100,000 people.
Whoa. Okay, so how where can you fit that many people, and when and where was this?
I was asked to perform. This is where my world of arts administrator and musician collided. And I'll do the backstory before I tell the 100,000 people. I was in the midst of contract negotiations, and our professional colleagues out there will appreciate this, that this often pits senior administration against musicians, those who are doing the work and those who are trying to make it happen in the best way and most affordable way possible. And I was on the front line of trying to craft a new contract and therefore financial arrangement, which was adversely affecting the musicians, sadly, at that time in the orchestra. And I was the point person for the administration, and the timing was horrible in that my first rehearsal with orchestra playing Schindler's List, the theme from Schindler's List, was with the orchestra during this time when the knives were out. The concert was with the conductor Kenneth Young, who's a famous New Zealand composer and conductor, and he was conducting the orchestra in this big annual summer concert that happens like the one the Oregon Symphony does here on the waterfront. And it's in this big, huge park called Hagley Park, which is the second largest open-air park to New York's big, what do they call it? Outdoor park, so Central Park. So it was extraordinary, and the organizers told us if the people on their blankets and piled into the park are all lined, all seated up into those far distant trees, we know you can fit 100,000 people in there. And that night there were people to the trees.
Wow.
I felt never like that before. I felt as close as I could get to a rock star.
Yeah, seriously.
And I had, the lapel, the Madonna mic, I called it, taped to my cheek. And that's how they amplified me.
Very cool. And I suppose, like rock stars do, you have actually scheduled a haircut with a dog groomer.
Yeah, this was a problem. When you move to a new town and you have to set yourself up with a new doctor and a new dentist and a new whatever, and one of those is not the dog groomer, but your person that cuts your hair. So I asked a colleague, I said, look, I got to get my hair cut. And this was, again, in New Zealand when I got to Christchurch. Funny that all three stories come from this time in Christchurch. And I said, look, who do you recommend? And he said, oh, look, don't go anywhere else. Go to my guy. It's called whatever. And he gave me the name. I said, okay, I'll look whatever up on it. He said, I can't remember the number, but look it up. You'll find it. So about 2 hours later, I'm looking up this Google and Googling this, and I found what I thought was the right name. And I called the place up and I said, I'd like to make an appointment. When's your first opening? And they said, well, Friday at 2 o'clock. I said, great. I said, thank you. I will be there. And something I said, and I don't know what it was, got them to say the next thing, which horrified me. And the next call I made was to my wife, like all red-faced. You do know that we cut dog's hair, right? I was like, oh, cancel that appointment.
Oh, no. Okay, so it was discovered in time that this... I mean, I wonder if they would have... Because, right now we're, we're all home. We have nowhere to go, and if somebody with hair grooming, with dog grooming experience, I wonder if they could give a good haircut, I know that I'm starting to think about what I'm going to do with all of this, right?
Disaster. Yeah.
Okay, so so you didn't actually get the haircut from the dog groomer?
No, I did find somebody that did it fine, and they cut full hair, but I was so embarrassed And it was like
that's
a
funny.
week before I could tell anybody but my wife what I'd done.
That's really funny. Okay, so we're running out of time actually. So there are a couple of things. Well, one of them, I would love for you to share about your online classes that you're doing because that's such a wonderful initiative, and I'm so in awe of what you're doing. So if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, um, thank you for giving me this opportunity. In all the things that I've done and created for myself or been most energized by, it's always had one, I figured out, it's always had one common denominator, and it's doing it in an environment that I've helped to create or nurture that includes others, not only just students, but other colleagues. And then back in 2010, I was asked to teach Skype lessons for my former professor, Kurt Sossman's house. So I started doing that online, and I've been doing it since. So I've been teaching online for 10 years. And when we had this recent, whatever we're in, happen, I had the knowledge and experience to do online individual teaching, but never group teaching. And so I had more bandwidth available to focus on that. So I started teaching my students and combining my private students and my college students in these classes. And it was what we needed. It was fantastic. It was educational. It was group. It was energetic. And that's just grown and grown and grown. And starting this week, we've had technique classes, we've had regular performance classes, and then starting this week, I've brought in colleagues to do this with me. And it's been great fun. So we have Dr. Thomas Kotik and Dr. Rebecca Hansen, both from Portland area, but then I brought in a great friend and colleague, a violist and professor from Malaysia, Dr. Andrew Filmer. But I want to do this as a thing, not just while we're here needing this. And so I am on May 1st launching a platform that is an international collaborative where we're having teachers like you. I'm reaching out initially to people I know, teachers teaching classes and being available to meet students. And back to that concept I had earlier, how did professors find me? And how did I find professors? And this is what I want this to be, is benefit for students, but a way for us to very affordably, for $10 or $20 or whatever it is, have a chance to play for somebody famous who's on the other side of the world.
So you have a launch date of May 1st for this specific. So this is basically what you're doing already. You're growing it into this platform, basically, right? Is that
correct? And right now we're learning and experimenting and having fun and growing. And it won't look a lot different come May 1st. It's just going to be a lot more. I have 13 classes lined already up for May, which will include not just violin and not just viola, but things like practice classes, how to practice with world famous people who understand the psychology of how the brain, the science of how the brain works, and Feldenkrais classes. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It's an extraordinary way to be a better physical human being with your instrument.
And folks who want to learn more about this, where can they find more information?
Thanks. So on my website, and maybe I'll let you share that, there's a link for online violin classes. And then that will, once we launch on May 1st, we'll link that to the new website. So I'm in the midst of working with a brand designer and graphic designer, web designer.
Very cool. So what I'm going to do, right? So, and it's your website, kevinlefohn.com, yes?
Correct.
So I'm gonna put that up on the screen for everybody to see. So it's up there now. And you guys, I have to tell you, I have been in a couple of these online classes. The most recent one was your intonation class, and I was there for the first half of the class, roughly, because I had a call to make, so I can only stay for half of it. But I was so impressed in that class and also in the previous class that I saw by many things, but one of them was just how engaged the students are. And because it's these particular classes, you do them on Zoom, so anybody who wants to share their camera, you can see them there with their violins, and they're really engaged, they're paying attention, they're participating, they're asking questions. So I was very impressed by the format and the effectiveness, and I am personally excited to check out the next stage of this come May 1st. And so the website is up on the screen, so you guys check it out. Maybe put a reminder on your calendar on May 1st also to go and check out the updates. Yeah, and I'm excited to see where this is going. So, and as we basically are out of time, Kevin, I just want to thank you for being here with us, for spending time with us, for sharing about your journey. We might have to do a sequel to this hangout because there's so much more I want to ask you. Uh, but thank you also for sharing your trio's music with us, and also look forward to seeing who will complete your trio now that Kira will be pursuing other academic and professional goals for the time being. So I'm gonna be paying attention to that.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts to leave us with before we let you go?
I'll just leave you all with a gift that and a deal for our online classes over the next 2 weeks. For anybody who registers for this Saturday's performance class with Tomas Kotik, or the next Saturday class with Professor Andrew Filmer from Malaysia, we will, if you put in the registration that you heard about it through the MYS virtual Hangout, we'll give you free access to one of the technique classes that we have, which will be, there's one tomorrow, so if people register between now and 10 a.m. tomorrow, they can get in free to that one, or the one next Tuesday. There's a technique class tomorrow's on bouncing bow strokes, and Tuesday's on vibrato. So those ones are free for those who register for those other ones.
That's awesome. And this current schedule of classes, where can we find these? Also on your website?
Also on that website, yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you. That's fantastic. And thank you again for your time and your generosity, Mr. Lefohn. And I will see you on Saturday for MYS rehearsals. And I will see everybody else at our next Hangout. So thank you again, Mr. Lefohn. We'll let you go now, and have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thank you for this, and thank you for all you're doing.
Oh, thank you. See ya.
Cheers.
Bye. Okay, everybody, that's our time with Mr. Lefohn. Thank you for watching. And so here's the next few Hangouts. Okay, so tomorrow, originally we had Suzanne Nance from Old Classical. She was going to be our guest, but she had to reschedule, and we will have her at a later date. So instead, we're going to show some of my own personal favorite highlights of our Hangouts so far. Okay, we've had so many great conversations with wonderful artists and also professionals of other disciplines that there's a lot to share. So I'm going to try and find my favorite bits of each Hangout and share those with you tomorrow. Some of these bits will be the live performances. Others will be highlights from our conversations. So that's tomorrow. And then Mr. Lefohn was just talking about his upcoming classes, and one of them will be taught by Tomas Kotik, who will be our guest this coming Tuesday at 4 p.m. He's an amazing violinist, recording artist. He's faculty at PSU. Then on Wednesday, Adam Eccleston, a great flute player. On his website also, he talks about his baking. He's a baker, so I cannot wait to ask him about that. He works with Bravo Youth Orchestras here in town. He's doing all kinds of wonderful things. And then on Thursday, the 23rd, we have a double feature, a double header with two musical couples from the Oregon Symphony, James Shield, Emily Cole, Marilyn de Oliveira, and Trevor Fitzpatrick will be joining us back to back, 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. And I'm looking forward to playing some fun games designed specially for couples on our Hangout, our double feature Hangout on Thursday the 23rd. Thank you again, everybody. Stay healthy, stay safe, and keep practicing. And I will see you all tomorrow for our highlights show. Take care. I'll play you out with a little bit more. Oh, the ending of Adios Nonino, a bit more Piazzolla. So here you have it. See you all tomorrow. Be safe.